Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome back to Chat and Channel Session. In this session, we are going to be discussing rumination of thoughts and why you look back so often, whether that is back to the far past of your experiences or even back to conversation that you had 5 minutes ago. How do we understand these obsessive or ruminating thoughts, and how do we better understand that process in order to heal, change, or correct it going forward so that we can enjoy more of our life consciously and easily. This is something that I know that I have dealt with a lot in life and have helped clients through, and I know that it is something that will help many of you out there. So I can't wait for today's topic today. But before we dive in, I want to welcome those of you back who are loyal listeners. I really appreciate everyone who is subscribed and returning. And for those of you who are new, my name is Danielle, #damsel at 𝑓𝑒𝑛lightened of damseldesigns.com. That is DAMCLdesigns.com. I am a spiritual empowerment coach, energy healer, psychic medium, teacher, energy artist, and so much more. And in these chat and channel sessions, my guides, or in some cases some of you, present me with a topic and we have a stream of consciousness channeling about it. Now, I invite you, provided that you are not driving or operating heavy machinery, of course, to get out a journal or the notes app on your phone or favorite device and participate in the chat portion of Chat and Channel and do some stream of consciousness writing along with me. I hear back from so many of you that if you do this process, you can connect with your guides and more of your own information, and my words and my channeling and my guides can start to speak to you and help you pinpoint the areas in your experience that you may be able to find more insights or intuition in. If you like and feel comfortable, you can also participate in the chat portion by leaving a comment or a question. I would love to get back to you there. Or consider booking a quantum or Akashic Records reading session with me via my website, or using the links to apply straight away for one of my specialty one-on-one quantum, 𝑓𝑒𝑛lightened, or shamanic energy healing or spiritual empowerment, life and consciousness coaching containers. You will find the links to all of that on my website or in the description, depending on which platform you are listening to or viewing this on. And you can also find me on my socials at 𝑑enlightened_edits, linked there as well if you want to connect more. You can find me most often on Instagram and YouTube. Remember that you can also bookmark this, as it is timeless material and has the ability through the quantum space to speak to you again whenever you feel the need to go over more of this material, as we often heal these things in layers and not necessarily in linear form. So if you're ever needing a refresher or a reminder in healing your rumination pattern, I welcome you back to this session again anytime, and would love for you to like it or share it as well, so that it gets sent out to more people that it could help. So with all that being said, let's get started. As someone who has experienced narcissistic abuse and PTSD, or more specifically CPTSD, and done a great deal of work on my mental health and energy healing, and educated myself as much as possible to provide more of this type of help to my clients as well, although I am not a doctor, please always see the disclaimer, and supplement this material with treatment from your doctors if you need it. But as someone who is really passionate about combining all those things, combining science and spirituality and mental health, and has been lucky enough to help and work with people all around the world, I can tell you that I've noticed a pattern in terms of those who are more inclined to ruminate, in the fact that many of us have experienced either childhood trauma or another type or time where we experienced a lot of psychological or emotional abuse. Of course, this can happen with physical abuse survivors as well, but I've found that more so the people that go through these emotional or psychological abuses from people like narcissists, maybe those with BPD, sociopaths, take your pick there. We're often the ones as survivors, and especially if we are empaths, who tend to develop this habit of rumination. Now, in my experience, this has a lot to do with the ego as well. Remember, the ego's primary function is to try to keep us safe and to try to keep us alive. And the ego, in how it sits in the brain and helps you to categorize your memories and experiences, will start to categorize certain things as safe simply because you survived them. So even if they were abusive or obviously non-ideal type experiences, if you did survive and make it through, it will go in the safe folder in categorization in your brain due to the ego. Now, because it was not an ideal situation, even though you survived, the brain tends to take on this extra mechanism, in my experience, where we then start to ruminate and say, yes, we survived, and yes, it's safe because we survived, and we know we can get through such things, but I hated that experience. It was really detrimental to my physical, mental, and emotional health. So I'm going to go over it and over it and over it to try to figure out what I could have done differently to prevent or end that situation, or what it was about me that was allowing that situation to continue. Now, this is especially common with emotional or psychological abuse survivors because of the fact that we often stay or get trapped in these toxic relationships or toxic cycles with these people. Now, these people could be your parents, they could be your caretakers, siblings, peers, friends, or they could be partners when you get old enough to have romantic partners, or bosses. It really does not matter who the psychologically abusive relationship was with. It's more about the fact that you stayed in it for a period of time and how difficult it may have been to end that relationship or dissociate enough from it that you got more in control of your own life. Because of course, if these people are family, it can be difficult to completely remove them from your life in some instances. That can also go for the fact of if they're co-parents with you, or if they are bosses and you can't quite leave that job yet. So until you get far enough away from the situation, or you've developed a distinctive barrier from the situation to be and feel protected and feel in enough control of your own life again, you are still technically within the toxicity of that situation. However, even if you are still in such a situation, you can start to use these understandings and these techniques to help you break down your rumination habit and gain back more control over your own life and mental health and habits. Now, as I was saying, because we often stay or feel trapped in these relationships for periods of time and these abusive situations, our brain is trying to help us out of them by constantly reassessing what happened in order to see how we could change it, how we could get out of it, how we can learn to stop allowing it in our life. There is also usually something that happens where the psychological abuser very often gaslights us, and so they will change the situation as it is happening in real time. They'll say, I didn't just say that to you, or that's not what I meant. You are taking the situation wrong. And so this plays with our brain because it constantly is hearing that if we did something or if we do something different, then we can get the result that is respectful or that we want, even though that person is never really capable of allowing a respectful or wanted situation for us. But so we get these conflicting messages in our brain, and so we often go forward thinking, oh, I need to think about this from every angle. I need to become hyper vigilant. I need to understand every different way of going about this so that I can do it the way that will be less traumatic, or the way where they'll finally treat me with the respect that I deserve, or where I'll finally get things to work out the way that I want or need. Because very often, depending on this person's position in your life, they can also sabotage other things that you're working on or working towards and not allow them to work out for you. And so that kind of reinstills this habit of thinking over as it is happening and then ruminating and constantly thinking back on the situation, trying to figure out why and how it could have gone that way and how you could do something different. Now, inherently, there is nothing wrong with your brain for doing this. Your brain is designed to learn from every experience, and your ego is designed to learn from everything that can aid in your rising position and authority in terms of staying alive and hopefully thriving. The problem is that we often ask why or how over and over and over again because we're so focused on things going a different way or how they could have gone that way that we don't often accept that they went that way, accept that the other person was responsible for their behavior and was possibly blocking a lot of our action and encouraging more what's called reactive abuse from us in terms of us being triggered and lashing out because of them being unwilling to deal with their behavior or be responsible for their own words or actions. And until we get to that point of accepting that that's how things were or that's how they are, and it's not really up to us to change it, it's more up to us to work on ourselves in terms of limiting that situation going forward, pulling back our own energy, protecting our own energy, and controlling our own responses and reactions for our own health and well-being. It becomes very difficult not only to be removed from the situation, but even if and when you are removed, it becomes difficult to stop thinking about the situation, stop ruminating over it, and stop allowing it to influence your expectations for future interactions in life as well. So this is where we get the carryover, where we kind of expect everyone to act on some level like that abusive person in our life. So this could translate to us overdoing in a lot of circumstances, over explaining because the abusive person perhaps always wants us to explain or always needed several types of explanations in order for us to justify something that we wanted or needed. And this can also translate in our own heads of us ruminating over every situation again and again and never really trusting ourselves, our abilities and actions at the time, or constantly feeling embarrassed, constantly second guessing, constantly shutting down in the moment and then thinking of something we would have preferred to say or do later. That is a lot based on trauma response, in my opinion and experience, because of the fact that if you are in these toxic or abusive situations for an extended period of time, you may start to experience a phenomenon known as soul loss, which you can find previous chat and channel sessions, mostly on my YouTube channel, discussing soul loss and narcissistic abuse. Basically, it's where we shut down, compartmentalize, or dissociate or remove or have removed a part of our usable soul or consciousness because of a protection mechanism based on going through the abuse or based on the other person's energy being vampiric and trying to energy grab from us. Now, healing this is something that I do on a shamanic energy healing basis with things like soul retrieval. And if you're interested in that, you can use that contact form to contact me about energy healing and empowerment coaching. And you may be interested in listening to those previous timeless chat and channel sessions on that subject as well. well. But I mention all of this briefly to say that we can develop that habit of shutting down in the moment because we're so used to doing that as a protection mechanism when we underwent or undergo the abuses that we may have experienced in life. Even if these were abuses that we experienced a long time ago and are no longer in contact with that person or that group of people, we may still have this habit or this soul dissociation upon us and our consciousness if we've never fully addressed it or healed it from all angles. But not to worry if this is something that you experience often. I can tell you, as someone who used to experience this all the time and be filled with not only rumination but a lot of regret and deep embarrassment after the fact, even though I knew I was not really doing anything wrong. I was not doing anything to hurt anybody, but I was constantly feeling like, oh, I could have presented myself better. I could have said this other thing. This other thing maybe would have helped someone more or let them see themselves or me in a better light. A lot of that is due to self-worth issues that we go through in life that also can be rooted in the things that we experienced, either in abuses such as we've been discussing, or from childhood trauma. You don't necessarily have had to undergo abuse like we've been discussing. You could have just experienced things in your childhood that were limiting to honoring the soul that you were and that you are. And I hear this also from clients all the time. They didn't necessarily go through such deep psychological and emotional abuse and trauma, but they did grow up with caretakers or parents that didn't necessarily know how to emotionally connect with and support them and honor them in their experience, or help them feel seen or whole and beautiful for whoever and however they were. And if we don't have enough of that type of foundation, not necessarily because our parents are bad people, but because maybe they're just not emotionally mature at the time that they become parents, or they haven't dealt with enough of their own stuff in order to also honor us in ours, then we can also develop these types of self-worth issues that can cause regret and rumination. But either way that you developed these types of mechanisms and behaviors, the most important thing to remember is that these are survival mechanisms. You should be congratulating yourself rather than judging yourself, because you developed these as things to cope, as things to survive. And now where you are at the point where you have survived, it is time to start to address them so you can start to work yourself, your mental patterns, and even your nervous system, as well as your soul, out of these habits of only survival and into that point of thriving and enjoying more of your life experience. It's why I do so much extensive healing and continual research and learning, and my best to bridge the gap between spirituality and science and mental health and all of these things, because I feel like until we look at how everything is more alike than it is different, and dive into every toolbox and take out the tools that will be most helpful to us in our circumstance, it's going to feel even more difficult to heal these things that can sometimes feel insurmountable, especially if you have been dealing with them for a number of years or maybe your entire life. But as someone who's done a lot of that work, again, for myself and with others, I can tell you it does start to feel better. It does start to feel easier when you find those tools that work for you and are continuously open to evolving them and expanding them and growing with them. You will be able to breathe easier. You'll one day notice that you can ruminate less. And one of the main tools that I recommend to start with, or to continue your journey with if you've already started this, is your re-education, is doing exactly what you're doing now. Researching, listening to things like this, because you've been listening to that rumination track in your brain, or to the replay of your abusers in your brain or out loud for how long? You've been listening to that as your point or your mode of education for how long, in terms of that being your baseline, in terms of that being your understanding or misunderstanding of why you're doing the things that you're doing, or why you're thinking or feeling the things that you're thinking. And you've probably been really harshly judging yourself or comparing yourself to others. And so now you step into this place of re-educating yourself, of hearing that it's quite common, of hearing that it's okay, of hearing that you're not alone, that you can do and will have the tools to heal this and to change the plasticity of your brain, to heal and connect more with your nervous system and your consciousness, your higher self, whatever you believe, and to come to a place where you can step out of those survival and coping mechanism habits and more into the place of being in control, or at least in harmony, right? Because control can be a coping mechanism as well. So being more in harmony with your own thoughts and feelings, and in more acceptance of your experience, not so that we condone it, not so that we give people a pass or give the experience a pass, but so that we can accept it in order to release its grip on us, and then actually have the power to heal, change, step out of it, whatever you need to do. Now, if you find that you still experience a lot of unhappiness, depression, or anxiety in life, I want to read you something that my guides had me channel, which actually sparked the inspiration for today's chat and channel session. This channeling that they gave me was akin not only to the process and the habit of rumination, but also how we so often tie it to things like unhappiness, like regret or anxiety. So they said, you look back because you're not happy with where you are now. This unhappiness, which often masquerades as anxiety, generally happens for two reasons. One is that you're trying to carry the past forward with you. You're ashamed or traumatized about what happened and continuing to bring it forward by looking back in an effort to process or heal, although many people can get stuck in the loop of this process. Or two, you are over analyzing the past, especially the recent past. For example, why did I say or not say that? I should have done this, etc., because you were taught not to trust where you're going. You were taught that if you did the past differently or perfectly, you'd end up in a better outcome or position. And though you want that, you're not sure how to create a better outcome from where you are now. So instead, you keep searching for how to do that by looking to the past. So I love this channeling because it touches on a lot of what we've discussed already, being some of the root causes for why we do that. But it also talks about how even after we're possibly out of these situations in life, whether they are from this life or others, if you subscribe to past life experience and theory like I do, it talks about how we actually continue to carry that energy forward. Now, while we've spoken about how we can do this because of a psychological pattern or habit loop that's happening in our brain, I also want to talk about how we do this in terms of energy. We carry so much of this energy forward, and traditional scientists and medical doctors are coming more to this understanding as well by seeing how trauma resonates in the body, in the nervous system, in the muscular system, and now also how ancestral trauma is a real thing. People's genes develop differently and their DNA turns on or off differently based on how they've experienced trauma. And in my point of view and experience as a spiritual healer and an Akashic Records reader, healer, and medium, I can tell you that these things can get carried forward physically in terms of the physical genes and bloodline that we carry in our avatar bodies, And they can also get carried over energetically in terms of our soul consciousness and how that imprints itself on our body. So this means that sometimes, yes, we can carry things forward on a soul level from other experienced timelines that we may have, whether we see those as past or parallel lives, or whether we see them as being put upon us from the spirits of ancestors or what have you. So this is where I really cherish the experience and the understanding of combining things like mental health healing with energetic and spiritual healing to lift those things from us, or to call back our power from where we may have released it or lost it in past experience. Now, my guides were very also keen, as you can see in that statement, to point out that looking back, or having the habit of constantly looking back, can be a preventative of moving forward. However, in my healing work, I like to look back with the intention of how we can more powerfully look forward. This is why I look at past life work quite differently, and how I explain it quite differently to my clients, because there's a lot of misconception in the past life community, people that get attached to archetypes rather than actual past life experiences, and confuse things like famous or well-known type experiences that are floating around in the Akashic record with actual experienced things. So I encourage you, if you are someone who believes in that or who is interested in exploring or healing like that, to go to someone that believes in really deep diving with you and not just validating what you may want to hear in terms of a past life. And of course, you do not have to believe in past lives to understand that habit of constantly looking back. How many people do we know or have been those people ourselves who are constantly telling the stories from our past, who are constantly telling the stories of experiences with our parents or our first loves or our ex-husbands or wives, right? This is something that gets ingrained in us to constantly look back. And this is often because we develop nostalgia about looking back, in addition to the previous habit that we discussed, which is the trauma response of looking back in order to heal or process those things. We can also develop a positive coping mechanism of trying to look back at good things from our past and attach to those, either to shut out the memory of the negative experiences, or in an effort to not look forward because the forward looks so scary to us. If we have difficulty looking or planning ahead, or believing or trusting in positive experiences for the future, this is often because we've experienced trauma in our lives where we had a lot of uncertainty, or where we had a lot of things that didn't work out the way that we wanted or needed. Now remember, trauma can be about any experience that is overwhelming to the nervous system. This can be a short-lived, quick experience like an accident. This can be a prolonged experience like abuse, or this can be a prolonged experience like poverty, food insecurity, not having enough, not being validated enough for a certain extended period of time. And that can be compound trauma. And so if we experience enough of this, if we have enough issues with our root chakra or our foundation chakra, and have difficulty grounding in positive experiences and developing a safe environment or foundation for ourselves, most especially if our parents failed in doing that for us before we were old enough to, then we can have a difficulty in trusting the future, in trusting or believing that things can and will work out for us. And so even though we may believe and work very hard in doing things like healing or manifesting, it can be more difficult for us to receive the results of those things, or to receive or enjoy those positive outcomes or futures, because we just don't believe in them enough after dealing with so much heartache or so much disappointment in life so far, especially especially if we've not healed or resolved enough of that disappointment to make space for trust of good things for us going forward. So although I am very much a believer of looking back in order to inform and empower our experience in going forward, if you are someone who finds that you get caught in that rumination type experience or is constantly looking back for the answer, I encourage you to at least think about exploring a new way going forward. Start to see how you can get comfortable with the process of a future and how it could actually feel real and good for you. Because I know, as someone who has struggled with this and on some levels is still healing it, because healing is non-linear, people like us were often so intelligent, so empathetic, and believe so much that there has to be an answer. But we can get caught in the loop of trying to or looking for that answer in the place where it probably will not be, or in looking for it on our own instead of employing or allowing the help and the support and perspective of another who may have been through it already, or who just has the strength and perspective or light to hold space for you or point the flashlight in a new direction to help you see something that you may not be able to see from the point of view of your current experience or the weight of your trauma. That's why, although many of us are not used to accepting help or asking for it, I encourage you, if you need help, please seek it, please ask for it, please be more open to it. That doesn't have to be with me or someone like me. If traditional therapy feels more calling to you, please do that. And my favorite thing is when people combine their medical health, their traditional therapy health, and their spiritual help and empowerment with someone like me, because then you have so much support to come at it from all sides, all angles, all possibilities, and choose the methods that work best for you while your body and soul is being supported. So I hope that you will consider that, pray that you will have the resources for it, and trust that even if you don't have the resources for it right now, Spirit and your guides are already starting to provide them for you just by you being here and having access to this free support and material. While I don't believe in doing it all on your own through things such as this, as someone who has done that, I can tell you it takes a lot longer and it can hurt a lot more. I do believe that until we get to the point where we find the resources that work best for us and allow us to receive and employ the support that would be best for us, things will be provided like stepping stones on your way to that full provision that you may need or be searching for. So I hope that that helps those of you who are brave enough to go about the journey of asking for or allowing more help and healing for you in your life. Now, as I said, if you've been resonating with me, no pressure, of course, but if you've been resonating and you would like to explore energy healing or empowerment coaching with me, you can do that via my website, or you can start off with a single quantum or Akashic Records reading session, and then we can expand you into a program like that if you like and feel called. But I do want to leave you with a couple more tools that you can start to implement on the everyday, on your own, to empower you more and facilitate more of your own healing. Please, of course, if you are in a dark mental health place and you feel that you need immediate help or you need medical help, please do not be ashamed to reach out for that. I know that in the US, we have implemented a new hotline for 611. Please utilize that or look up resources online. They are very quick to find now, no matter which country you are in, so that you can get the help that you need as soon as you need it. And don't be afraid, even if you are going the mental health or medical route first, to ask your therapist or your practitioners about things like what their beliefs are in terms of spirituality, and hire or fire people in that field based on what feels good and resonates for you. I know sometimes we get afraid because we're hurting and we need help so fast to take a chance with different people and say if someone's not the right fit for us because they may have the accreditations. But there are so many doctors and mental health care professionals who are also believers in spirituality now as well. And so I am confident that if you do that due diligence work, or if you ask someone to help you do it if you don't have the capacity to do it right now, you will be able to find someone who is a great fit for you and may even be open to working with you and someone like me. I love it when doctors and mental health professionals also ask my opinion or work with their clients and me in conjunction. I believe that's really how we get such success stories all around. And I'm so thankful for any and all of you in the medical fields who also believe and invest in your or your clients' spirituality. But as I said before we close the session for today, I want to give you a couple of tools that I believe will be really helpful for you in starting to end these processes of rumination or constantly looking back. The first thing I suggest is there is a tool and a technique which is not mine. I give full credit where credit is due. There is a technique called the compassion key, where you apologize to yourself for experiencing something from the past or experiencing or feeling something in the now. Now, apologizing in this way helps you to accept it. Again, acceptance is not the same as condoning something or continuing to agree or allow it, but where you accept it to the point where you can forgive and you can start to heal or be empowered enough to change it so that you release its grip or hold over you. So what you can do is use the beginning of the compassion key technique, which is to say, I'm so sorry. And then I also like to add something to it that turns it around to a positive vein. So for example, if you were thinking, things never work out for me, I'm so stupid, why did I do or say that? What you can do is just take a moment. You may want to go into the bathroom or go into your car or your room or closet, wherever, you can get a moment to yourself. Put your hand on your heart and you can whisper it or say it in your head, whatever you are able to do at the time, and just say, I'm so sorry that you've experienced that. I'm so sorry that it feels like things never work out for you. I'm so sorry that it feels like things never work out for us. Now you're saying this with all the love that you would if you were to say it to someone else that you loved. But what you're doing in that moment is you're also inviting your higher self to step in and heal with you. And you're inviting a higher point of your consciousness that has more perspective than you do in that experiential moment to stand there with you and speak to your current self and also the past self where the roots of these feelings most probably come from, and apologize for that experience, for those feelings, but also accept them and forgive yourself for them so that you can start to be released from the loop, from the grip of that impression in your head and in that rumination thought stream. So if you're disappointed with what you said or didn't say, you can say something to yourself like, I'm so sorry that we feel like we let ourselves down. I'm so sorry that we didn't get the chance to say that. I'm so sorry that we said that in an embarrassing way. And then you can add something to it if you like, which is something like, but I believe we can let that go now and do better next time. I believe it's okay. I believe those people will forget or be able to look past that. I believe in us. We can let it go. What do we want or need now? And then what you do is you step into the current moment where instead of looking back and trying to fix it, from the past. You are standing in the now and asking yourself either what you need right now, what need for yourself you can fulfill. Because a lot of times when we're ruminating, we're seeking to fill a need from the past that didn't get met, right? We needed some point of satisfaction by saying the perfect thing, or we needed some point of validation by saying the perfect thing. We didn't say that, so we didn't get that need fulfilled. So how can you stand in the now, and what do you need to fulfill it now? What is something that you can do to fulfill yourself and that need now? And just ask and wait for the answer. It could be something like getting a particular type of food. Obviously, if you have something like an eating disorder or an over or under indulgence with food, that may not be the best thing to do for you, but take whichever answers come and do your best not to judge them. So it may be something like, I need 5 minutes before going back in that room, or I need 5 minutes before answering someone's text message, or I need to listen to a song or watch a show that will relax me and help me feel soothed before doing something else. And do your best to fulfill those needs and keep those promises to yourself. And then what you're doing as you're undergoing this process and this new practice of fulfilling a need after apologizing, you're kind of rewiring your brain and your nervous system's responses and reactions so that you get introduced to this new type of reward system rather than this detriment system, because very often rumination is met with constant detriment in the brain. So if we're doing this new practice, then we're instead instilling dopamine and reward response, which helps us with acceptance and helps us to start to stop that process of rumination and then move towards things like acceptance more easily and fulfilling our own needs more easily rather than continuously looking to outside circumstances or situations going in a perfect way in order to fulfill them, because we're starting to teach ourselves that we can fulfill our own needs even if they weren't met by other people or even if they weren't met in those previous moments. All right, so those are the two things that I would like you to focus on in terms of instilling in your life going forward. The I'm so sorry, which is part of the compassion key, apologies to yourself, and then add on my technique of then stepping into the now, asking and connecting either with your higher self or perhaps a wounded part of the self or inner child that has a need that wants to be fulfilled, and seeing how you can fulfill that in the now and going forward, and then allowing that to help you develop a better and more trusting relationship with your present, and thus enabling you to trust more in building and allowing a better and more enjoyable future for yourself. So try those out. Let me know, come back and comment. Let me know how it feels when you start to try out those things. If you have any generalized type of questions, you can leave those in the comments and I will do my best to answer those. If you have personalized questions about this, it may be best to deal with those in a session to get you the best answers possible and for privacy reasons. So again, you can find those linked on my website, Damsel Designs, DAMCL Designs.com, or you can reach straight out to me for a call about energy healing or coaching. I also invite you into one more practice, which is either a meditation suggestion or a journal prompt. I want you to try to think about when the first time it was that you questioned your behavior or ruminated. I want you to try to pinpoint that. You may get the answer right away. It may take you a few days and then it might pop back into your head. But picture that version of you, the first time that you ruminated about something, the first time that you obsessed about something from your recent or previous past. What did that version of you look like, and what sparked that for you? And how can you go back to that version of you and work on healing or fulfilling the needs that were unmet in that time in order to release that pattern from still holding itself hostage over your life? I look forward to many of you having positive experiences thanks to this. Again, please remember to like it and share it if you liked it. This is timeless material, and it is my hope and intention that it will help many of you with this rumination habit, because often we are some of the most powerful people. And if we can call back some of that energy that we use to ruminate and use that to manifest instead, or be healed instead, or create something instead, my God, I want to see more of what that world looks like. So thank you for being part of that with me. No matter how this takes shape for you, I'm so happy that you've been here and experienced this session today. And I'm so glad that it has the opportunity to help you create better for you in your life. Please remember to become a subscriber or follower if you're not already. You can catch the backlog of chat and channel sessions in a chat and channel sessions playlist on my YouTube channel, and find me on the daily on Instagram. If you have a topic that you would like me to do a chat and channel session on, you can leave a comment or reach out to me and I will add it to my list. I hope to see you next time. Be blessed with love, light, and light codes. Love, Danielle. #damsel at 𝑓 damseldesigns.com.